A reading from the book of Isaiah. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. The word of the Lord.
I lift my eyes up to the hills. From where is my help to come? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved, and he who watches over you will not fall asleep. Behold, he who keeps watch over Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord himself watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand, so that the sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. It is he who shall keep you safe. The Lord shall watch over your going out and your coming in, from this time forth forevermore.
A reading from the book of Revelation. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned from her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, See, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell from them as their God. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away. And the one who was seated on the throne said, See, I am making all things new. Also he said, Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true. Then he said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water as a gift from the spring of the water of life. Those who conquer will inherit these things, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. The word of the Lord.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Excuse me while I break a rule. Fogs up my glasses and I can't see what I'm saying. Jack and I have been friends for over half of our lives. And during those years, we've become pretty close friends. Now, we didn't always agree on everything. That's not what friendship is about. He was the only friend I ever had who regarded me as a liberal. That is how conservative he was. What, you can't hear me? Is the what? The light. Aaron, is the hearing loop on? Can you hear me now, Shirley? Okay. Even our leisure interests were different. He was a golf enthusiast, as most all of you know. I was a hunter and a fisherman. I once told him that anything you could beat with a club all day and it was still too tough to eat had no interest for me whatsoever. I must admit, however, that eventually he won me over after I retired. And it was Jack who taught me how to play the game of golf. At least he told me how to hold the clubs and how to keep my eye on the ball. It was many months before we moved from the driving range to the golf course. But even there, we had our differences. Jack was a stickler for every rule that was ever written about the game of golf. While I was more of the mind, it's just a game. And I was very fond of golf terms like mulligan and gimmies. Now, for those of you who don't know what those mean, mulligan is a do-over, a second chance. When you screw up on a shot, you put down a different ball and try it again. And a gimme was a putt that, it's close enough to the cup, just pick it up. I attribute the fact that we only played together occasionally at his golf club to his fear that I might tell his golf buddies that he was the one who taught me how to play golf. When Jack got back to the clubhouse, his score was always 100% accurate. Every stroke, every putt, every penalty. Mine, more often, was a kind of a approximation. But you can't reach the age of 87 years of life without the painful knowledge that unlike perfection on the golf course, perfection in the course of human life has only been accomplished once. Not one single one of us can come to the end of our lives without knowing that we have certainly fallen short of perfection. Jack was no exception. And sometimes his expectation of himself on the golf course made it difficult for him to accept God's grace in the course of his life. In the game of golf, even the smallest infraction demands a penalty from which there is no graceful escape. You know, it's really sad how many Christians there are who are caught up with this kind of legalistic religious thinking. Over the years, it has just broken my heart to be with the dying who were facing their own deaths with fear and trembling. I remember one who summed it up perfectly. And she said, "I'm afraid I haven't been good enough." And I told her that if she was counting on being good enough to enter into the kingdom of heaven, she didn't have a chance. And neither did I. And it was exactly for this reason that God sent his only Son, to the end that all that believe in him should not perish, but should have eternal life. You know, Jesus came to save us from the fact that we are indeed not good enough. As the book of Revelation reveals, he came to make all things new, to redeem us, to declare us that in God's eyes we're good enough. In Christ Jesus, it is written in the Epistle to the Romans, we are no longer under the law. We are under grace. This is because when Christ died, he died for sin once and for all, for everyone. Romans 6:10. Therefore, we must consider ourselves dead to sin and alive to God in Christ Jesus. Verse 11. Jack, as you know, had a multitude of really tremendous achievements in life about which he could be justly proud. His service to his country more than once, the many lives he saved on his operating table, the respect that he had throughout our community, the love he shared with every one of you who are his family, and with those of us who call him friend. But like every one of us, he had his regrets. There were things he wished and knew he should have done differently. We had a few conversations over the years about these concerns, and I'm pleased to say that he came to accept wholeheartedly that God's grace was more than sufficient for man's frailties. When it became evident that he was facing his own death, it was not in fear of condemnation for not being good enough, but with the peace of knowing the love of God, who was pleased to call him his child. I believe with all my heart that he knew the truth. He knew Jesus, who is the truth. And that in him, that God lovingly offers a multitude of mulligans. And that the eraser on that pencil, that they give us with our scorecard, that's meant to be used. And used with great joy and thanksgiving. Now, my vision of Jack right now is not the body lying in that casket. My vision of him is in his newly made living being taken by the hand and led to that place that is prepared for him by his loving Lord. He's home. He has been made new. Thanks be to God. Amen.
I too will do this, otherwise I'm fogging up. Dr. John, Jack, Dad, Papa. First time I had the extreme pleasure of meeting Mr. Dr. Gray, I was picked up at Carroll College 38 years ago to meet the family for the first time. I'll never forget that family station wagon pulling up our completely terrifying journey up north. An elite surgeon and respected military colonel, we had so much in common. An 18-year-old physical education major from Chicago with my preppy flipped-up collar and topsiders. What could go wrong? I was terrified. No red-blooded American male looks forward to meeting the father of their girlfriend for the first time. Right, Nick? The ride went well and uneventful, most likely because I wasn't talking much, which, believe me, is very difficult for me to do. My first impression, classy, well-kept and groomed, very stern appearance, and I knew not a lot of idle chit-chat would be happening. The weekend went well, adjusting to the complete opposite household I grew up with. In comparison, it would be a library with 5 young ladies in Neenah versus 6 boys, 2 girls, and a fireworks show in a circus in Chicago. I believe I was a little shocked to the Gray family, but I do have to say they made me feel very welcome. Through the years, our relationship grew to what it is always will be today, a truly father-son relationship. Believe me, it was not always easy to ride through the choppy waters of life, but then again, what father-son relationship ever is. I was blessed to have him when I lost my own father several years ago, for him to step in full time. Everybody knows what a disorganized and carefree guy he was. Yeah, that's what I thought. I have yet to meet a man so organized and precise. There was no from-the-hip decisions or, oh, that's good enough, coming from him. That just wouldn't happen. My brother-in-laws can all attest to that. Try putting a peer in with him just once. I guarantee you, after one time, you'll make sure that the calendar is booked the following year. Funny thing is, he was a very patient man as well, and he'd be more than happy to delay the installation until I could make it up north. So thoughtful of him to work around my schedule. I don't know how I would have survived not experiencing Dad leveling a 150-pound pier section while we had to hold it for about 20 minutes as he waited for that bubble to be right in the middle of that thing. Dad loved boating and golfing, 2 of his passions in life, along with watching the Badgers, of course. The boat ride. Just a smidge of a project. Don't even think about running down, uncovering the boat, jumping in, and speeding off for an enjoyable ride on Lake Winnebago. No, that's not how it happens. First, you have to sweep off the cover. Carefully don't pull the snaps, carefully unsnap the cover. Fold it in that certain way that you have to fold that cover. And then, we're not ready yet. You have to then fold that nicely and then put it in the compartment, the labeled compartment of where that cover goes. We now move to wiping down the seating. Have to do that. Sweep the floor. The cooler now can be put in the boat, along with the boat bag, that famous khaki boat bag with the blue trim. You got to check it for the phone, extra rags, for what, I don't know, can coolers, flashlight, lake map, several other items that never even left that bag. Not quite ready yet. You got to check the water levels, turn on the sonar, slowly lower that boat to the water. Now, everybody, move to the middle of the front, or we're never going to get off this lift. After an hour of preparation, we're ready for the ride. The ride itself, for the record, priceless memories. And golf, the Godfather of Ridgeway. I thought he owned that place, the way they respectfully treated him and members parted the way to the first tee. This was a great way to bond outside the family, to be honest with you. Believe it or not, he did loosen up a bit on the links, just a bit. But be prepared to have a lesson on every swing, like Father Bill said, in the club, some useful, some I could not wait to get to that beer lodge to numb the pain. But I'd always hear out of the corner of my ear, it's a little early for a beer, don't you think, Tom? Followed by, hey, as long as you're going there, I guess I'll take a Bud Light too. At the end of each round, I always look forward to sitting in that lounge for a sandwich and beer and watch him smile ear to ear as he added up that scorecard to let me know that he beat me again. Who knew you had to count every single stroke? Right, Bill? Well, yes, he did. And it didn't matter. It was great spending that time together with him. I never hesitated to call him if I had a question about anything. He would always listen and then let me know what his thoughts were. I did not always take his advice, which I probably should have, but I always knew he was only thinking of the best outcome of my question for myself and my family. He was a trooper when it came to his love for all his grandchildren and their events: football, soccer, baseball, basketball, dance recitals. Heck, I didn't even want to go to half those things. But he always seemed to be genuinely enjoying himself when he was there. He also didn't mind that martini with the 2 olives after all those events. That always came as a nice surprise. Dad and Mom raised 5 beautiful, successful daughters and helped sharpen 4 son-in-laws along the way. We are truly and extremely grateful. Dad, you will be missed every day, but your words of wisdom, which I hear in my ear, and the love for your family will never be forgotten, but will live on through your grandchildren who are blessed to have known you. Enjoy being healthy again in heaven. I look forward to seeing you again on that first tee. But please do me a favor and don't make that reservation quite yet. I love you. I'd also like to add that there will be one more speaker. David Wood would also like to speak today. Thank you.
Colonel Gray, Dr. Gray, Jack, Dad, Grandpa, Papa. He went by many different names, depending on the setting and path he was crossing, but to me he was always Papa. I get my Irish blood from my dad's side, but consider myself extremely lucky to have been named after Papa and honored to be his eldest grandson. I'm not usually one for public speaking, as you can tell. I am generally fine with staying in the background, but I felt compelled to share a few words how Papa positively impacted my young life. A multi-sport high school athlete from the metropolis of Ripon, Wisconsin, Papa worked in his father's drugstore before heading off to pharmacy school himself. After graduating, he married his high school sweetheart, my wonderful Nana, and they started their family. Nana worked nights as a nurse. Papa worked weekends as a pharmacist, beginning their journey through medical school. We heard many times how they'd have to count their pennies, buy a loaf of bread for 12 cents, and how Papa would study with my Aunt Pam in the infant seat while Nana tried to sleep. Frugality was key. Wise spending and saving for a rainy day were ingrained in Papa. That drive and achievements alone would be enough to qualify him as a hero in my book, but Papa didn't stop there. Papa chose a career in medicine because of his brilliant mind and desire to help others. He fixed and saved many lives during his time of surgical practice, and I'm glad that some of my cousins will be able to carry on his legacy. To Megan, Ben, David, thank you for being able to grasp chemistry and biology much better than I could. He served his country with great pride and dignity as a U.S. Army surgeon, moving his family across the country multiple times, deployed overseas to Korea and Germany. I was privileged to play golf with Papa at MacDill Air Force Base, just outside of Tampa, while visiting him and Nana over spring break years ago. While it is standard protocol to see him present his military ID and the airmen stationed at the gate, to observe these young men stand and salute Papa is something that gives me goosebumps to this day. Circling back to his high school days at Ripon, Papa seemed to have competed in essentially every sport: football, basketball, track and field, baseball, but no soccer. For me, my siblings, and some of my cousins, soccer was our sport. We all know Nana loves soccer and how proud she is about champion girls soccer, Anita. So I'm guessing she had a hand in this. But Papa came to as many soccer games as he could. I can still hear the "good game, John," he would say as we came off the field, and I know most of my cousins could say the same. Where I think I'll miss him the most is the golf course. I was gifted my first set of junior clubs for Christmas one year, and privileged to grow up not far from Papa's home course. Thursday mornings growing up in the summer meant junior golf at Ridgeway with Papa. As many know, tardiness is general trait of the Berry family. Inevitably, we would always be late. Papa, with my mom squealing into the parking lot in a minivan, Papa already there, shaking his head, pointing at his watch. After a quick lesson on the range, it was off to play a few holes. Sometime with another junior golfer or two, but most of the times just Papa and me. I learned the etiquette of the game, the honesty and respect you show the course and the other golfers, and to swing it easy when it's breezy. Most lessons that would translate directly into other walks of life. Most people know Papa isn't a fan of slow play in front of him or with him, which never made sense to me why he was always in a hurry. He was already retired. Golf is a frustrating and humbling sport, and I could never seem to play my best in front of him. I think because I was nervous and always wanted to play well to make him proud. With Papa in the golf cart, as I walked, carrying my bag alongside him, there was no better feeling than a pat on the back after a good shot, or his famous beauty and a soft smile, maybe even earning a ride to the next hole. Memories I will always cherish. I was the last of the grandchildren to come visit Papa and Nina last weekend. As we might have expected, he made sure to stay with us until everyone had a chance to say goodbye. Giving him one last hug. As the organized and patriarchal figure that he always was, he was probably determined to make it through Father's Day. And he was indeed blessed to be surrounded by all 5 daughters on his final day. 12:58 a.m. Monday morning, I woke up with a puncturing pain in my stomach. It would go away. I finally laid back down and tried to fall asleep. Minutes later, my dad came down to tell me Papa had taken his last breath. My brothers and I sat up with my dad, shared stories and tears. Around 2:30 a.m., when the tears subsided, Chris, Andrew, and I each tried to down one of Papa's favorites, a dry martini on the rocks with 2 olives. It was 5 o'clock somewhere. We all agreed it must be an acquired taste. We will miss his generosity, dry sense of humor, love for his family and country. We will surely feel his absence on Veterans Day and over the winter holidays, and I'll certainly miss his post-game analysis, often frustration, following Brewers, Packers, and Badger games. I know these last few months weren't easy. Shape up or ship out is what he'd always tell us at the kids' table when things got a little too loud or rambunctious, but it was always with a soft smile. On behalf of Megan, Matt, Chris, Ben, David, Sam, Andrew, and Stephen, Nick, Thomas, Abby, Hannah, Lydia, Daniel, we're really gonna miss you, Papa.
Papa had all daughters, and I think the first couple grandsons made him pretty thankful for that really quickly. My grandpa was the smartest man I knew, and he knew how to enjoy life the right way. On the golf course, watching the Badgers, watching his family play sports, and around family and friends. My grandpa taught me the importance about family. He taught us a lot, but the biggest thing he taught us is that nothing's more important than family. We can't thank you enough, Nana and Papa, for all the experiences you gave us. My favorite vacations were our family trips organized by you and Papa. My grandpa taught me always to look good. And no, Papa, I didn't find the clippers, but I shaved, so there's one for you. When I'd stop by, he'd usually be out in the yard in clothes that I'd go out on a date with. But it's always better to look good. Papa loved his family so much, he and Nana decided to cut their time short in Florida these last couple of years and spend it around loved ones. That right there is enough to tell you. He really loved his family because these springs aren't fun. Although I was clearly his favorite grandchild, no one else would be able to tell you that. Each and every one of us knows Papa loved us and would do anything for us. I would dread going to my sister's dance recitals for 2 hours, and him and Nana would drive to come see her do the same dance, and then drive back home late at night. Papa's love for his family was clear, and the lessons he taught us were everlasting. We'll always love you, Papa.
Papa was a perfectionist, which is a great thing if you're on the table and he's your surgeon about to operate on you, but pretty frustrating trait if you're helping him out with chores around the house. I think that's actually why my dad has high blood pressure. He was the ultimate girl dad. Sure, I may not have been around when he was raising my mom and aunts, but I can tell you he did a pretty great job. Just looking at the women, mothers, and aunts that they have become. It wasn't all women, though, as God rewarded Papa with some darn good men as son-in-laws and way too many boys as grandchildren. And a few granddaughters, of course, as well. He was stern with us growing up. I think that all my cousins and I can agree that when we heard it, shape up, it was time to let go of that headlock you had on your cousin in the back den. However, he was also extremely loving and supportive. At a younger age, you don't quite realize or appreciate enough everything that he did for us. And that's my only regret, is not thanking him enough. From taking us on wonderful vacations, opening up their Florida home to us year after year, and coming to an unbelievable amount of sporting events, dance and piano recitals, graduations, and even a wedding. While I was initially devastated that he wouldn't be able to physically come anymore, I was at peace knowing that he had front row seats for the rest of our lives. I'll always remember that smile that crossed my papa's face when my dad would remind him that all the family members that were gathered together, laughing, joking, and having a good time at holidays or family outings, then none of it would be possible if it weren't for my grandparents. While that is both biologically accurate, well, it is also true that their love, support, generosity, and patience built the family that we are today. So thank you, Papa, and thank you, Nana. for everything that you have done and continue to do for myself and our whole family. Rest easy, Papa. We love you.